Hey everyone, Jonathan Reed here. I'm 33, a chemist at a big pharma company right here in Dallas, Texas. I've got a story that's been weighing on me heavy, one that's ripped my world apart. It's about trust, betrayal, and the kind of twist that hits you like a freight train. If you're into real-life drama that feels like a thriller, stick around. But let me warn you, this one's got layers, and by the end, you'll be questioning everything. It all starts with a hook that still haunts me. I knew him my whole life. We shared baseball games at the old Reverchon Park, racing bikes down the Katy Trail, and even our first motorcycles tearing up the back roads near White Rock Lake. Mark Davis was more than a friend. He was like a brother. And I never dreamed he'd be the one to shatter my family into pieces. Growing up in Dallas back in the 90s, life was simple and full of adventure. Mark and I met in kindergarten at Lakewood Elementary School. We were inseparable from day one. Picture two scrappy kids with scraped knees, building forts in the backyard of my parents' house in the Lakewood neighborhood. Summers were endless. We'd grab our gloves and head to the ball fields at Titsa Park, pretending we were stars for the Texas Rangers. Mark was the pitcher with a killer fastball. I was the catcher who could read his every move. We'd laugh until our sides hurt, sharing secrets under the big oak trees. As we hit middle school at J.L. Long Middle, our bond only got stronger. We joined the Boy Scouts together, camping out at Cedar Hill State Park, learning to tie knots and start fires. Our first big adventure? Sneaking out one night to watch a meteor shower from the top of Flagpole Hill. We lay there staring at the stars, talking about dreams, me wanting to be a scientist, tinkering with chemistry sets in my garage, and Mark dreaming of owning his own business. Always the entrepreneur at heart. Those were the days when loyalty meant everything. We'd pinky swear on our biggest secrets, like the time we accidentally broke a window at the Dallas Arboretum and blamed it on a stray baseball. High school rolled around at Woodrow Wilson High, and that's when things got even more interesting. We were the dynamic duo, football games on Fridays at the Cotton Bowl Stadium, cruising in my beat-up Chevy pickup that we fixed up ourselves. Mark was the outgoing one, always cracking jokes in the hallways, while I was buried in AP chemistry, geeking out over experiments. Life felt invincible. Then, in our junior year, Laura walked into our world. She transferred from a school up in Plano, with her bright smile and that effortless confidence. She joined our chemistry class, and boom, sparks flew. Laura was smart, funny, and had this way of making everything exciting. We'd study together at the Wildcat Cafe on Abrams Road, munching on burgers and fries while debating lab results. Mark was right there with us, teasing me about my crush. "Go for it, John," he'd say with a grin. Little did I know, that grin hid something deeper. But back then, it was all innocent fun, three friends against the world. We graduated with big plans, but Dallas kept pulling us back. Those childhood memories? They were the foundation of everything. Or so I thought. As the years went on, cracks started showing, but I was too blind to see them. Stick around for part 2, where college shakes things up and love enters the picture. You won't believe how it all unravels. After graduating from Woodrow Wilson High, Mark, Laura, and I all headed to UT Austin in 2010. I was stoked to dive into chemistry, geeking out over organic compounds in the Welch Hall labs. Mark went for business, always talking about starting his own empire, while Laura studied marketing, her eyes lighting up when she talked about branding and startups. Austin was our playground, 3 Dallas kids taking on the big leagues. We'd spend weekends kayaking on Lady Bird Lake, grabbing tacos at Torchy's on South Congress, or chilling with our rescue mutts at Zilker Park. Yeah, we all loved dogs. Laura's golden retriever, Daisy, was basically our group mascot. Our trio was tight. We'd pull all-nighters at the Blanton Museum Cafe, sipping coffee and arguing over who'd ace the next exam. Mark was the life of the party, always dragging us to 6th Street for live music at the Parish or Maggie Mae's. I was the quieter one, but Laura brought out my wild side. We'd sneak into the UT Towers observation deck after hours, just the 3 of us, staring out at the Austin skyline, dreaming about the future. "We're gonna run this world," Mark would say, clinking his soda can against ours. I believed him. By sophomore year, Laura and I were falling hard. It started with late-night talks at Kirby Lane Cafe, splitting queso and pancakes. She'd laugh at my nerdy chemistry puns. "You're my perfect reaction, Laura." Corny, I know, but she loved it. Our first kiss happened under the string lights at the South Austin Trailer Park Eatery, with Mark cheering us on like a proud wingman. By junior year, we were official, and it felt like the real deal. Laura had this way of making everything brighter. She'd plan impromptu road trips to Barton Springs or drag me to the Austin flea market to hunt for vintage records. I was head over heels. Mark, though? He was still the same old Mark, our third wheel, but the good kind. He'd crash our dates at Alamo Drafthouse for movie nights, always with a sly grin and a don't mind me vibe. He was like a brother, always there, always loyal. Or so I thought. There were moments, looking back, that should have raised flags. Like when he'd linger a bit too long when hugging Laura goodbye, or how he'd always volunteer to help her with her marketing projects. I brushed it off. Mark's just being Mark, right? He'd never cross a line. We were the three musketeers, after all. By senior year, I was dreaming of a future with Laura. We'd talk about settling back in Dallas, maybe starting a family someday. Mark was still figuring out his path, bouncing between startup ideas and odd jobs. He'd joke about being the broke one, while Laura and I planned our next steps. Graduation came in 2014, and we left Austin with degrees, memories, and what I thought was a rock-solid bond. But there was something brewing under the surface, something I wouldn't see until it was too late. It was 2014, and after graduating from UT Austin, Laura and I moved back to Dallas, ready to start our adult lives. I landed a solid job as a chemist at a big pharmaceutical company, Alcon Laboratories, over in Fort Worth, just a 40-minute drive from our new place in the Bishop Arts District. The commute down I-30 wasn't bad, and I loved the work. Tinkering with compounds in a state-of-the-art lab, feeling like I was making a difference. Laura, meanwhile, was buzzing with ideas for her own marketing consultancy. She'd spend hours at Ascension Coffee on Oak Lawn, sketching out business plans and meeting potential clients. Her ambition was infectious, and I was proud to support her. Mark? He was still finding his footing. He'd moved back to Dallas too, crashing at a cheap apartment in Deep Ellum, while chasing his entrepreneurial dreams. He'd tried a few ventures, an app startup that flopped, a short stint selling cars at Park Place dealerships, but nothing stuck. Still, he was around all the time, dropping by our place on Davis Street for game nights or to grill burgers at Kid Springs Park. Laura and I would laugh at his wild stories, like the time he tried to pitch a business idea at the Rustic and ended up spilling beer all over the investor's shoes. Classic Mark, we'd say, shaking our heads. Laura and I were in full-on planning mode for our future. We'd spend evenings at Oddfellows, sipping lattes and dreaming about our wedding. I proposed to her one night at the Dallas Arboretum, right by the Azalea Garden under a canopy of twinkling lights. She said yes, and I swear I felt like I could conquer the world. We started planning a wedding for the next spring, picking out venues like the Filter Building on White Rock Lake, and debating catering from Lockhart Smokehouse. Mark was right there, hyping us up, volunteering to help with everything from music to decorations. "You guys are going to have the best wedding Dallas has ever seen," he'd say, clapping me on the back. But looking back, there were signs I missed. Laura and Mark would sometimes have these private jokes, little glances I didn't quite catch. One night at Gloria's Latin Cuisine in Uptown, I caught them whispering about something while I was in the restroom. When I came back, they clammed up, laughing it off. "Just talking about your terrible taste in wedding songs," Laura teased, but her eyes darted away. I shrugged it off. Mark was family, right? He'd never do anything to hurt us. Still, Laura seemed busier than usual, always on her phone, meeting clients at odd hours. I figured she was just hustling to get her business off the ground. By early 2015, we were deep in wedding prep, and life felt like it was falling into place. I was working long hours at Alcon. Laura was landing her first big clients, and Mark was still the third wheel we loved having around. But something was simmering, something I wouldn't see until it exploded in my face years later. That's where this story's headed, and trust me, it's going to get wild. Now, we're at the wedding, spring 2015, the happiest day of my life. Or so I thought. Here's the hook. I stood at the altar thinking I'd won at life, but behind my back, a secret was already unraveling that would destroy everything I believed in. This chapter's got joy, love, and a creeping sense of something off that'll keep you glued. It was April 18th, 2015, and Dallas was blooming. Laura and I tied the knot at the Filter Building on White Rock Lake, a gorgeous venue with floor-to-ceiling windows and views of the water sparkling under the Texas sun. The place was decked out. White roses from Central Market, fairy lights strung across the ceiling, and a playlist we'd spent months curating, blasting everything from Van Morrison to the Lumineers. Laura looked like a dream in her lace dress, walking down the aisle to Ho Hey, while I tried not to cry like a sap. Our families and friends filled the room. My parents from their Lakewood home, Laura's folks from Plano, and about 100 others packed in, ready to celebrate. Mark was my best man, of course. He stood beside me in a sharp navy suit, cracking jokes to keep my nerves in check. "Don't faint, John," he whispered as Laura approached, grinning like he owned the place. His speech at the reception was classic Mark, charming, funny, with just enough heart to make everyone tear up. We held the reception right there at the Filter Building, with catering from Lockhart Smokehouse, brisket and ribs that had everyone raving. The dance floor was packed, and Laura and I swayed to Into the Mystic at sunset, the lake glowing orange behind us. I remember thinking, this is it. This is what forever feels like. We'd spent months planning every detail. Laura obsessed over the menu, dragging me to tastings at Celebration Catering in Oak Cliff. Mark chipped in too, helping us pick out the cake from Society Bakery on Greenville Avenue, a 3-tiered vanilla masterpiece with raspberry filling. He even DJ'd for a bit, spinning tracks at the after-party when we moved things to the standard pour in Uptown for late-night drinks. Everyone was laughing, clinking glasses, and toasting to our future. My coworkers from Alcon were there, Laura's new clients, even our old high school crew from Woodrow Wilson High. It felt like the whole city was cheering us on. But there were these tiny moments that nag at me now. Like when I caught Mark and Laura sharing a look during the toasts, a quick glance that felt off. Or how Laura disappeared for a bit during the reception, saying she needed to check on the cake. I found her later outside by the lake, talking quietly with Mark. When I asked what was up, she laughed it off, saying they were just reminiscing about Austin. Mark clapped me on the shoulder, all smiles. "You're a lucky man, John," he said. I believed him. Why wouldn't I? He was my brother, and Laura was my world. The night ended with us driving off in my old Chevy, now decorated with "Just Married" signs, heading to a honeymoon suite at the Jewel Hotel downtown. Laura leaned her head on my shoulder, and I felt like the king of Dallas. It was late 2015, just months after the wedding, when Laura told me she was pregnant. We were at home in our cozy Bishop Arts District apartment, eating takeout from Eno's Pizza at the Tavern on a random Tuesday night. She slid a positive pregnancy test across the table with a shy smile, and I nearly choked on my pepperoni slice. "We're going to be parents?" I asked, my voice shaking. She nodded, and we laughed and cried, hugging right there in our tiny kitchen. It felt like the next chapter of our fairy tale. Sophia Reed was born on February 12, 2016, at Baylor University Medical Center in Dallas, less than a year after our wedding. Holding her for the first time, with her tiny fingers curled around mine, I felt a love I didn't know was possible. She had Laura's bright eyes and a little tuft of dark hair, and I was smitten. We brought her home to our new house in Oak Cliff, a fixer-upper we'd bought near Kessler Park. Life became a whirlwind of diapers, late-night feedings, and pure joy. I'd rush home from Alcon Labs in Fort Worth, eager to scoop Sophia up and sing her to sleep with off-key lullabies. Laura was a natural mom, though she juggled parenting with her growing marketing business, often working late at Café Brazil on Cedar Springs. Mark was still a fixture in our lives. He dropped by our house unannounced, always with a gift for Sophia. A stuffed longhorn from the UT bookstore, or a tiny Rangers jersey from Dick's Sporting Goods at Hillside Village. "Gotta spoil my favorite girl," he'd say, tossing her in the air while she giggled. I loved how much he loved her. He'd hang out for hours, playing with Sophia on the living room rug or joining us for family dinners at Boulevardier in Bishop Arts. Laura and Mark would reminisce about old times, and I'd laugh along, never suspecting a thing. To me, it was just Mark being the fun uncle figure. But there were moments that nagged at me, even if I didn't dwell on them. Laura seemed distracted sometimes, always checking her phone or stepping outside to take calls she said were client meetings. One evening at Tillman's Roadhouse, while we were celebrating Sophia's first birthday with their famous fried chicken, I noticed Mark and Laura exchanging a quick, quiet look when they thought I wasn't watching. It was fleeting, but it stuck with me. Later, when I asked Laura about it, she brushed it off, saying they were just planning a surprise for Sophia's next birthday. I bought it, why wouldn't I? Mark was my best friend, and Laura was my rock. Work kept me busy at Alcon, developing new compounds and pulling long hours in the lab. Laura's business was taking off, landing clients like local boutiques and even a startup in Deep Ellum. Mark, meanwhile, was still drifting, taking odd jobs, bartending at the Grapevine Bar, selling used cars at Sewell Cadillac. He talked big about his next venture, but nothing ever stuck. Still, he was there for us, always showing up with that easy grin. I thought he was just being supportive, but looking back, his constant presence was starting to feel calculated. Sophia was growing fast, her laughter filling our home. By 2018, life in our Oak Cliff home was busy but good. I was climbing the ladder at Alcon Laboratories in Fort Worth, working on a new eye care drug that had me buzzing with pride. Laura's marketing business was thriving. She was landing bigger clients, like a trendy Deep Ellum brewery and a boutique on Henderson Avenue. We'd celebrate her wins with date nights at the Mansion restaurant on Turtle Creek, splitting their famous tortilla soup and dreaming about our future. Sophia, now almost 3, was a ball of energy, running around Clyde Warren Park or splashing in the fountains at the Dallas Arboretum. She was my world, and I'd do anything for her. Mark, meanwhile, finally found his groove. After years of bouncing between jobs, he got his real estate license and started working for Briggs Freeman Sotheby's in Dallas. Turns out, he was a natural, charming client, closing deals on swanky homes in Highland Park and Preston Hollow. By 2019, he was making serious money, driving a shiny new Tesla Model S and renting a slick loft in the Victory Park neighborhood. He'd swing by our house more than ever, always with a new toy for Sophia. A custom dollhouse from the Toy Maven in Snyder Plaza, or a kid-sized electric Jeep from North Park Center. Only the best for my girl, he'd say, ruffling her hair. Sophia adored him, calling him Uncle Mark in her tiny, squeaky voice. I was happy for Mark, but his constant presence started to feel intense. He'd show up unannounced, sometimes when I was still at Alcon, hanging out with Laura and Sophia for hours. I'd come home to find them laughing over pizza from Cane Rosso and Bishop Arts, and it felt like I was interrupting something. Laura would wave it off, saying Mark was just checking in, and I'd nod, trusting her completely. But there were little things that bugged me, like how Mark always seemed to know Sophia's favorite snacks or how he'd buy her clothes that matched Laura's style perfectly. Little floral dresses from Kid Biz at the Plaza at Preston Center. It was sweet, sure, but it felt like he was trying too hard. One night, we all went to dinner at Jose on Lover's Lane, a favorite spot for their killer enchiladas. Sophia was in her high chair, giggling as Mark made funny faces. I noticed how she'd light up around him, her little features mirroring his smile in a way that didn't quite match mine. I brushed it off. Kids change, right? But Laura seemed quieter that night, her phone buzzing constantly with work texts. When I asked, she said it was a new client, but her eyes didn't meet mine. Mark jumped in, changing the subject to some big real estate deal he'd just closed on a mansion in University Park. I let it go, but a tiny seed of doubt was planted. Mark's success made him bolder, too. He'd invite us to fancy events, like open houses at Ritzy Estates or charity galas at the Statler downtown, acting like he was part of our family unit. I appreciated his friendship, but it was starting to feel like he was too close, too invested. I'd catch him staring at Sophia sometimes, not just with affection, but with this strange intensity, like he was searching for something in her face. "She's growing up fast, huh?" he'd say, almost to himself. I'd laugh it off, thinking he was just being sentimental. It was early 2024, and Mark was riding high. His real estate career was booming. He was selling million-dollar homes in Preston Hollow and throwing parties at his Victory Park loft with views of the Dallas skyline. But at 33, he was also hitting a midlife crisis vibe. He started talking about living life to the fullest, which led to him buying a sleek black Kawasaki Ninja motorcycle from Dallas Powersports in Garland. "Gotta feel the wind, John," he'd say, revving it outside our Oak Cliff house. I'd roll my eyes but grin. Mark was always chasing the next thrill. Laura and I were in a good rhythm. My work at Alcon Labs kept me busy, tweaking formulas for new glaucoma meds, while Laura's marketing business was thriving, with clients like a new coffee shop in Bishop Arts and a yoga studio on Knox Street. Sophia, now 8, was a whirlwind, already in elementary school and obsessed with reading at the Wild Detectives bookstore. Mark was still our constant third wheel, dropping by with gifts for Sophia or inviting us to dinners at places like Uchi in Uptown. I noticed he'd linger longer with Laura when I wasn't around, but I chalked it up to their old friendship. Still, those quiet looks they shared, like at a barbecue at Clyde Warren Park, started to gnaw at me. Then, one rainy night in March 2024, everything changed. I got a call at 2 a.m. from Parkland Hospital. Mark had been in a horrific motorcycle accident on I-35 near downtown Dallas. He'd skidded on wet pavement, crashed into a guardrail, and was now in a coma with multiple fractures and internal bleeding. Laura and I rushed to the hospital, leaving Sophia with my parents in Lakewood. Seeing Mark in the ICU, hooked up to machines, was a punch to the gut. My best friend, the guy I'd known since kindergarten, was fighting for his life. The doctors at Parkland were blunt. Mark needed multiple blood transfusions, and his condition was critical. Laura was a mess, pacing the waiting room, her eyes red from crying. I tried to comfort her, but she seemed distant, almost frantic. Days passed, and Mark stabilized but stayed in a coma. Then came the bombshell. A routine blood test revealed Mark had a rare form of leukemia, chronic myelogenous leukemia, they called it. The crash had masked it, but his blood counts were a mess. The only long-term fix? A bone marrow transplant from a close relative. Problem was, Mark had no living family. His parents had passed years ago, and he had no siblings. The doctor at Parkland, a no-nonsense guy named Dr. Patel, said, "We need a blood relative, ideally a sibling or a child, for the best match." Laura froze when she heard that. I didn't think much of it at first. I was too busy volunteering to get tested as a potential donor. I wasn't family, but I'd do anything for Mark. We sat in the hospital cafeteria at Parkland, sipping bad coffee from styrofoam cups, waiting for my test results. Laura was quiet, staring out the window toward the Dallas skyline. "He's got to pull through," I said, squeezing her hand. She nodded but didn't look at me. That's when I felt it, a cold, creeping dread. Something was wrong, but I couldn't put my finger on it. The truth was closer than I realized, and it was about to hit me like a freight train. It was a gray April morning in 2024, and we were still camped out at Parkland Hospital in Dallas, waiting for news on Mark. He was stable but still in a coma, his leukemia diagnosis hanging over us like a storm cloud. I'd just gotten tested as a potential bone marrow donor, but the results came back negative. I wasn't a match. Dr. Patel, the hematologist, pulled us into a small consultation room near the ICU. The walls were a dull beige, and the air smelled like antiseptic. He explained that Mark's best shot was a transplant from a close relative, ideally a sibling or a child. Without it, he said, his chances are slim. I felt helpless. Mark had no family left. Or so I thought. Laura was sitting next to me, clutching a paper cup of coffee from the hospital cafeteria, her hands trembling. She hadn't been herself since the accident. Distant, jumpy, always on her phone. I figured it was stress, but that morning, something broke. Dr. Patel left to check on Mark's chart, and it was just the two of us in that tiny room. I reached for her hand, trying to comfort her. "We'll figure this out, Laura. We'll find a way to help him." Her face crumpled, and she pulled her hand away, staring at the floor. "John," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "There's something I need to tell you." My stomach dropped. I'd never heard her sound like that, small, scared, like she was carrying a bomb. "What is it?" I asked, my heart pounding. She took a shaky breath, tears spilling down her cheeks. "Sophia, she's not yours. She's Mark's. She's his little girl, John. Mark's daughter." Time stopped. The room spun, and I felt like I'd been sucker punched. "What are you talking about?" I managed, my voice hoarse. She looked up, her eyes pleading. "It happened the night of our wedding. At the filter building. We were drunk. It was a mistake. But Sophia's his. I'm so sorry, John. 8 years. 8 years of lies." I saw flashes of that wedding night. Laura disappearing to check on the cake. Her and Mark whispering by White Rock Lake. His easy grin when he told me I was a lucky man. It wasn't just a one-time mistake. It was a betrayal that started the day we vowed to love each other forever. I stood up, my chair scraping the linoleum floor. "You slept with my best friend on our wedding day?" I asked, my voice shaking with rage. She nodded, sobbing. "It was a mistake, John. I love you. I didn't know how to tell you." I wanted to scream, to break something, but all I could see was Sophia, my little girl, with her bright eyes and infectious laugh, running around Clyde Warren Park, calling me daddy. Was she really not mine? The truth clawed at my chest. Mark, my brother, my best man, had betrayed me in the worst way. And Laura, my everything, had kept it hidden, letting me raise another man's child. I stormed out of the room, past the nurse's station, and stood in the hospital parking lot, staring at the Dallas skyline, trying to breathe. The life I'd built was a lie. It was April 2024, and I was reeling from Laura's confession in that sterile Parkland hospital room. Sophia, my 8-year-old sunshine, wasn't mine. She was Mark's, conceived during a drunken betrayal at our wedding at the filter building. Mark was still in a coma, fighting leukemia, and the doctors needed a bone marrow donor. I wasn't a match, and Mark had no other family. Dr. Patel, the hematologist, dropped the bombshell. Sophia, as Mark's biological daughter, could be the key to saving his life. A bone marrow test for a child her age was risky but possible, and it might be his only shot. I drove home to our Oak Cliff house that night, my hands shaking on the wheel. Laura stayed at the hospital, claiming she needed to think. I couldn't even look at her. The betrayal burned. 8 years of lies, Mark's constant presence, his gifts for Sophia, those secret looks I'd ignored. It all made sense now, and it made me sick. I sat in our living room, staring at Sophia's toys scattered across the floor, a stuffed unicorn from the toy Maven, a tiny Rangers jersey from Mark. My heart screamed, she's still my daughter. Blood doesn't make a father. Love does. And God knows, I loved that little girl more than anything. But the truth gnawed at me. She was his, too. The next day, I met Laura at Cafe Brazil on Cedar Springs to talk. She looked wrecked, her eyes puffy from crying. "John, I know I messed up," she said, her voice breaking. "But Mark's dying. Sophia could save him. Please." I slammed my coffee cup down, drawing stares from nearby tables. "You lied to me for years, Laura. You and Mark betrayed me on our wedding day, and now you want me to risk Sophia for him?" She sobbed, begging me to think of Sophia, who loved Uncle Mark. I wanted to hate her, to hate him, but Sophia's face kept flashing in my mind. Her giggles at Clyde Warren Park, her tiny hand in mine at the Wild Detective story time. I went to see Dr. Patel at Parkland the next morning. He explained the procedure. A bone marrow aspiration for Sophia would be low risk, but not painless. They'd need my consent as her legal guardian. I felt trapped. If I said yes, I'd be saving the man who stole my wife and my trust. If I said no, I'd be letting my best friend die, and Sophia might one day ask why I didn't try to save her uncle. I wandered Dallas that afternoon, ending up at White Rock Lake, staring at the water where we'd celebrated our wedding. The memories felt like poison now. After days of agony, I made my choice. I couldn't let Sophia grow up knowing I'd let someone she loved die, even if that someone was Mark. I signed the consent forms at Parkland, my hand trembling. For Sophia, I'd do anything, even if it meant saving the man who broke my family. But the decision left me hollow, torn between love for my daughter and hatred for the truth. It was late April 2024, and Parkland Hospital in Dallas felt like a second home. I'd signed the consent forms for Sophia, my 8-year-old, to be tested as a bone marrow donor for Mark, who was still in a coma, battling leukemia. Every fiber of me hated him for betraying me with Laura on our wedding night at the Filter Building, but I couldn't let Sophia grow up knowing I'd let someone she loved die. Laura was barely speaking to me, staying at the hospital or hiding out at her office in Bishop Arts. Our marriage was a ghost, haunted by her lies. The doctors prepped Sophia for the bone marrow test. I sat with her in a pediatric wing room, holding her hand as she clutched her stuffed longhorn from the UT bookstore. "It's gonna be okay, Daddy," she said, her big eyes trusting me completely. I forced a smile, my heart breaking. The procedure was quick, and Sophia was a champ, no complications. Dr. Patel confirmed she was a perfect match for Mark. Relief washed over me, not for him, but for her. She'd done her part, and I prayed it'd be enough. The transplant was scheduled for the following week, and I allowed myself a flicker of hope that we could all move forward, even if my trust in Laura and Mark was gone. But life doesn't play fair. 2 days before the transplant, I got a call from Parkland while I was grabbing coffee at Ascension Coffee on Oak Lawn. Dr. Patel's voice was heavy. "Jonathan, I'm sorry. Mark didn't make it. He passed this morning. A blood clot," they said, "a complication from the accident. No amount of bone marrow could have saved him." I stood frozen in the parking lot, the Dallas skyline blurring through tears. My best friend, the man who'd been my brother, then my betrayer, was gone. I felt rage, grief, and an eerie emptiness all at once. I drove to our Oak Cliff house, where Laura was waiting. She collapsed when I told her, sobbing into my chest. I didn't push her away, but I felt nothing. "We're done, Laura," I said quietly. She didn't fight it. The next week, I filed for divorce, hiring a lawyer from Thompson and Knight in downtown Dallas. Laura didn't contest it. She moved out to an apartment in Uptown, leaving me with our house and Sophia. I didn't tell Sophia the truth about Mark. She was too young, and I couldn't break her heart. She'd lost her Uncle Mark, and that was enough. Months later, I sat with Sophia at White Rock Lake, near where Laura and I got married. She was splashing in the shallows, laughing, unaware of the truth that tore me apart. I'd lost my wife, my best friend, and the life I thought I had. But as I watched Sophia, her smile brighter than the Texas sun, I knew one thing. She was mine, blood or not. I pulled her into a hug, her little arms wrapping around me. "I love you, Daddy," she said. She had no idea about the truth, and I swore right there she never would. Some secrets die with us. My heart ached, but it was enough. I lost my wife. I lost my friend. But I'll never let them take my daughter. Even if she's not mine by blood, she's mine by heart. That's the end, y'all. Thanks for listening. Life's messy, but Sophia's my reason to keep going.